We do.
Hey Zion. Okay. If a saw of truma,
Hey, Dalad, actually.
oh, because I'm using the wrong. That's your part.
That's my part.
The wrong one. Okay. Okay. Hey Dalit. But the tissue's in the wrong place, and I have it checked and everything. If a saw of unclean truma fell into 100 saw of clean truma, but Shammai forbids this, but Beis Hillel permits. Said Beis Hillel to Beis Shammai, since the clean is forbidden to non-priests and the unclean is forbidden to priests, then just as the clean is canceled, so too should the unclean be canceled. Beis Shammai says to them, no. If chulin, which is treated leniently and is permitted to non-priests, annuls the clean, should truma, which is treated stringently and is forbidden to non-priests, annul the unclean. After they admitted, Rebbe Eliezer says truma must be taken and burnt, but the Kakaman said it is lost because of its small quantity. If a sar of truma fell into 100 and he lifted it out and it fell into another place, Reb Eliezer says it renders meduma as does the definite truma, but the Kakaman say it renders meduma only proportionately. And if a sar of truma fell into less than 100, rendering it meduma, and some of the meduma fell into another place, Reb Eliezer says it renders meduma as does definite truma, but the Chachamim say the meduma renders meduma renders meduma only proportionately, and the leaven renders leaven only proportionately, and drawn water renders the mikvah unfit only proportionately. Okay.
Okay. Mishnah Zayin. Se'ah truma shenafla lamea. Okay. So here once again is our classic case of a of truma that fell into chulin, but it's batal. No problems. Okay, so what do you got to do? You got to take out the amount that fell in and call that the truma and give it to the kohen. So picks it up, and on his way to the kohen, oops. Oh, no, sorry, I beg your pardon, different case. Is that another se'ah of truma falls into this pile. And he takes it, so he takes it out, and another se'ah of truma falls into the pile. Hooray, zot muteris. In each, because each case is a separate case. Therefore, the same halacha applies every time. Ad shetir truma al hachulin, until the amount of truma that has fallen in has become greater than the chulin. Now, there are two ways that you could calculate that. One way is you could say, well, proportionately, when you take out a bit of that se'ah, it's 100th truma. So you can take that off, or else you just say, well, maybe every time you've taken up you've picked up the quasi truma, you've been picking up 100% chulin. So then after 50 times that truma's fallen in, you no longer have a majority of chulin inside the pile. And then remember, the whole reason why we can do this is because the din Torah is that truma's batal barov. But when you
Right.
no longer have a rov of chulin, then you can no longer be lenient like this. Okay. Um, Mishna ches, Mishna ches, sa truma shenafla lamea. So once again, you have the same situation. The truma fell into 100 parts. Velo hispik lahagbia ad shenafla acheres, and he didn't manage to take out another thing of truma until, and then another se'ah fell in. Arezo asura. Now you've got 2 parts of truma against your 100 parts of chulin, and that's no longer batel. Okay, Rabbi Shimon Matir. Now we're going to have to look at this case and say, well, where is this actually? Where is this actually? So the Tosefta says that is quotes Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. What's this case over here? When he didn't know that the first bit of truma had fallen in, and only after the second one fell in did he realize that the first one had fallen in. But if he already had a yediyah, if he saw the first se'ah of truma falling in, then immediately, because he knows about it, it's batel, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the second se'ah of truma falls in, it's also batel. Okay, it's only, and what is Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Shimon is being matir even when he didn't know. Um, so right, that's an important thing, is about when does the idea come in, and that actually kind of makes sense, because if you think about it, otherwise every single case of bittul, you could say, well, actually, it was before the whole lot fell in. It fell in molecule by molecule, and each molecule that came in, if you did a freeze frame, the first molecule that falls in is batel, second molecule that falls in is batel, and it keeps, and every time it comes in, it's batel. So it has to go by the idea of when the person realizes that something has fallen in, and that's kover. What's the halacha of the mixture? As when a person realizes, the truma has fallen in, and now it's batel at this point. Therefore, if some more falls in now, it remains batel. Okay. Hmm?
No, it's a little confusing, but okay.
All right. I mean, is there something that you're still finding confusing, or is this clear now?
So he had Truma fell into 100, and before he could take it out, another fell in,
Hmm.
right? So now,
That's right.
so the whole thing is forbidden now. He can't do.
That's right. So then the whole thing becomes meduma. But this we clarified in the Tosefta. This is only talking about a case where he didn't know about the first lot of truma that fell in before the second one fell in.
Right. If he
Okay,
knows,
so what we're saying is that his yediyah immediately draws a line and says, okay, at this point, the first sa'af truma fell in. He didn't have a chance to take it out yet.
Yudiyah is his.
Knowledge.
Yep, no, no,
Yediyah is knowledge.
right,
So once a person got the knowledge that this has fallen in, then we immediately cover the halacha of this mixture right now.
right. Okay.
All
So
right.
Reb Shimon permits this, but why?
So why does Rabbi Shimon permit it? Okay, because even though he didn't manage to take out the first one, still, it was batel before the second one fell in, and so the whole thing is basically chulin, and now it's mea ve'echad chulin. It's now 101 chulin against the second se'ah of truma. So therefore, the whole tarovis is mutar lazarim. He sees it as being batel, even though there was no yediyah,
Right.
which is interesting because it's not quite on point, but remember, Rabbi Shimon is the guy who always looks at kavana,
Uh-huh.
right?
Okay.
He's always interested in the kavana of the thing. So yeah, the guy who did not have kavana. So therefore, it should. If I were to guess at Rabbi Shimon's opinion, I would have said no. He needs kavana to do for this to be batel.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Onto Mishnah Tes. Se'ah truma shenafla lemeya. Once again, it fell into 100 parts, and it officially is batel. Okay. Utechanan upachasu. And now he ground the grain, and it reduced in volume. So now there's a concern over here, which is said is that maybe the chulin is now reduced in its volume, and it's no longer 100 against the truma. So says the Mishnah, don't worry, they're reduced by the same proportions, and just like the chulin is reduced, so is the truma reduced. So mutar, don't worry. Now the um, in the converse case, se'ah truma shenafla lepachos mimeya. What happens if a se'ah of truma falls into less than 100 of chulin? So the whole thing is now meduma. Now it gets ground. Dechanan v'hosiru. And he when he ground it, the hosiru means that the volume became greater. Now, I'm not sure how exactly you can grind it and the volume can increase. Possibly became more airy or something like that. I don't know how the mechanics of that works, but let's just suspend disbelief for a moment and say that after he's ground them, the volume has somehow increased. So you can't now say that now the chulin has increased in volume and now it's going to be mevatel the truma. The same calculation applies, that as much as the chulin increased, so did the truma increase. You can't play games like that. Okay. However, if you know that the chulin grain is a higher quality than the truma grain, and which means that after he ground them, the chulin would have increased, but the truma would not have. And now you would have theoretically 100 chulin against the truma that's mixed up in it, then that would become mutar. And even though before it was before they were ground, it was made into meduma, nonetheless they've returned and become mutar again after the grindings, since now the truma is actually batal in the 101. Interesting situation here that it was meduma, you ground it, and now it's mutar. That's only because you know that the chulin is a higher quality, and its volume expands. And in the Yerushalmi says that even lechatchila you can do this, and this is not called, it's not called mevatel isur lechatchila, right? We have a problem with taking things and deliberately being mevatel, and you can't just put a drop of milk into your chicken soup and say, I feel like doing this because I know it'll be batel. There, we're going to punish you for that.
Right.
Okay, and the same thing with the truma. But in this case, we say the chitim was already there for grinding, and just by the way of grinding, it turns out that the chulin is more than what we thought. Now, we have the same actually by bugs in produce. I mean, I always love the case of ketchup, because it's a great one for getting people surprised and grossed out, and like understanding principles of kashrus, is that on the ketchup bottle you've got these pictures of these lovely tomatoes.
Right. Right.
Okay, those are not the tomatoes that they put into ketchup.
No, those are the the good ones.
The good ones are the ones that wind up on your shelves in the supermarket.
Right.
The ones they use for ketchup are the sug dalad ones
Yeah.
that are already mushed and messed up and probably full of all sorts of bugs.
Oh, thank
Now,
you.
you think the badats that put the hechsher on the ketchup, do you think they sit checking all the tomatoes,
I don't
making
think
sure that
so.
there are no flies in them? Okay, no, they don't. What do? They're crushing them.
Right.
And because they're crushing them, they're leaving no insect intact.
Right.
Okay, there's no Indian Iberia at all, even according to those who don't hold by the Aruch HaShulchan. Um, and so we say, hold on, this is bitul lechatchila. You're deliberately nullifying the bugs inside there. How can you do that? Say, no, we're not trying to nullify the bugs. We just want to crush the tomatoes. We've always wanted to crush the tomatoes. We want to make ketchup. It's not like we're not playing games over here in order to get rid of the bugs. We want ketchup, and therefore this is what we do to the tomatoes. And while we were doing this, it turns out that there are no more bugs left. They've all been crushed.
It's a good thing I don't use ketchup that much. It's very rare. It's a good thing.
Right.
You should tell
So
my
also
grandchildren.
the same sort of thing applies if you want to go to Rebar and have a strawberry smoothie or a blueberry smoothie or all of these any of these other fruits and vegetables or whatever that can often be infested. Do you have to ask them to check their bugs to check the produce before they
No,
make the
no.
smoothie? No, you don't, because the smoothie chops up everything that's inside it. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it because the whole thing is. And the whole thing is batal, and you don't need to say bittul lechatchila, no, because all you want is a smoothie. If it turns out that there are no bugs in it afterwards, okay, that's a side effect. So the same thing applies over here. Is that he was going to grind the wheat anyway, and the fact that it now turns out to nullify the truma that was in it, okay, that's a side effect.
Well, you really
Okay.
roast me out this morning. I'm not a big smoothie fan for me. It's not good for me. So
Uh-huh.
in the tequila, does what they crush up the worm eventually at the end in the tequila?
So the worm is an interesting situation. I know we discussed this in the kashrus classes. Is that the worm? It turns out that the worm in the tequila is actually okay. I don't remember why it was. I don't remember why it was, but there was actually no. But it turns out that there was some lumdus why it's actually okay. Also, wormy cheese. We'll get onto that.
Oh no. You're going to lose your students in the class, you know. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Um, so Sa'at Truma Shenafla Lepachos Mimea. So once again, we have the case of the Truma that falls into less than 100 chulin. V'achar kach naflu sham chulin. And then more chulin fell in that made up the 100. Im shogeg mutar, im mezid aser. So this is right on point. We're talking about being mevatel lechatchila. If he says, oh well, there were 90 chulin against the truma. So if I just add another 10 chulin, then we'll be mevatel the truma. You can't do that, and that's aser. If he did that, then it's still. If he did that deliberately, it's aser. However, if it happened by accident or some kid just came and threw some more in the pile, not knowing that it was meduma, and it turns out that now the chulin can be mevatzil the truma, then ashrecha, you've scored. So it's only if it happened by accident that we allow this bittul to take place. But if it was deliberate, there's a knas. He's not allowed to benefit from it.
Okay.
All
Wow.
right. Gimel Hay.
Okay. Come on, page. Here we go. If one says the truma of this heap is within it, and its maestras are within it, the truma's maestra is within it. Reb Shimon says he has designated, but the Chachamim say not unless he says in the north or in the south of it. Reb Elazar Hisma says if one says the truma of the heap from it is for it, he has designated it. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov says if one says the tenth of this maisa is truma maisa for it, he has designated it. If one separates Truma before Bechorim and Maisa Rishon before Truma, or Maisa Sheni before Maisa Rishon, though he transgressed the prohibition, what he did is done. Since it is stated, you shall not delay to offer the abundance of your fruits or your liquors. And whence do we know that Bechorim must proceed to Ruma? This is called Truma and Reshet, and that is called Truma and Reshet. And that is called Truma and Reshet. Bikurim takes precedence since they are the first fruits of all, and Truma precedes Rishon because it is a Reshet, and Maisa Rishon precedes Sheni because it is a Reshet. Okay,
Reshit, yeah.
Reshet. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just put
Okay.
this over here. Okay.
Shvius Gimel base.
Okay. How much manure can be deposited? Up from 3 dung heaps in a Beit Saw, which each containing 10 basket loads of 1 leket each. One may increase the number of baskets, but not the number of dung heaps. Reb Shimon says also the number of dung heaps. A man may set up in a field 3 dung heaps per one spade saw. If more, he must set them out in a triangle. So Reb Shimon. But the Chachamim forbid unless he lowers 3 or raises 3. A man may pile his manure onto one large heap. Reb Meir forbids unless he lowers 3 or raises 3. If he has but little, he may go on adding to it. And Reb Elazar ben Azariah forbids unless he lowers 3 or raises 3 and places it on a rock. If one uses his field for a cattle fold, he must erect an enclosure that covers 2 sa'ah. He pulls out 3 sides and leaves the middle one, which leaves him with a cattle fold of 4 bed saws. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says of 8 bed saws. If his entire field was 4 bed saws, he leaves part of it for appearance sake. If he takes out from the cattle fold and puts it in his field in the manner of those who bring out the manure. Okay.
All right. Brachas base aleph.
Someone was reading the Torah and the time of his recital arrived, and if he set his
The
heart,
the recitable Kriyashma, yeah.
right. If someone was reading the Torah and the time of the recital arrived and he set his heart to it, he discharged his obligation, and if not, he has not discharged his obligation. Between the paragraphs, he asked out of respect and answers, and in the middle, he asked out of fear and answers. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Yehuda says, in the middle, he may greet or on account of fear, and he may return a greeting out of respect. In the breaks, he may greet out of respect and return the greeting of anyone. These
That's
are
the halach is Rabbi Yehuda.
These are the breaks between the first and second bracha, between the second and Shema, between Shema Yisrael, and it shall come to pass and the Lord spoke, between and the Lord spoke, and true and firm. Rabbi Yehuda says one is not permitted to interrupt between Va'omer and Emet V'Yitzev. Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha said, if one, why does Shema precede so that one should first accept upon himself the yoke of the kingdom of heaven, and afterwards take upon himself to observe mitzvot? Why does Yahya say, come before Vayomer? Because Yahya has application both day and night, and Vayomer is only applicable to the daytime. If someone read the Shema but did not hear it, he fulfilled his obligation. Rabbi Yossi says, he has not fulfilled his obligation if one read the Shema without enunciating the letters properly. Rabbi Yossi says he has fulfilled his obligation, and Rabbi Yehuda says he has not fulfilled his obligation. If one reads in reverse order, he has not fulfilled his obligation. If one erred and read and erred, and he must revert to the place where he erred.
That we said is specifically referring to if you say "Uchsavtam al mezuzos beisecha uvisharecha," you say that, and you think, hold on a second, is that from the first paragraph or the second paragraph? So if he's not sure, then he has to go back to the first paragraph because he's not clear about whether he's in the first or the second.
In our class this morning, we had discussion about what if someone gets up very early? They get up. They can't sleep. They get up, and it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and Al Shashaka hasn't even come yet.
Hmm?
Can he start? Can he say Shema? Can he start saying it
No,
then?
no, you can't say Shema. You can't say Shema before Alas Hashachar.
Right. But I said if he did, then would he have to? He would have to say it again, but
Yes.
starting with the brachas, starting after Baruch Hu, he would have to say those brachas again, and if not again, but he have to say them for the first time, and say it. Yeah.
Yeah, Alas Hashachar is the earliest that we saw this actually. Was it in Megillah? Where, uh, where, um, where all the mitzvahs, any mitzvah that's supposed to be during the day is meant to be from sunrise.
Right.
But if you did any of them before sunrise, but after Alas Hashachar, you still Yotze. Kriyas Shema Dafka should be before sunrise. That's the best.
Mhm.
But for example, all of the Tamid Shel Boker, right?
Right.
That should be done after sunrise. But if you did it after Alos Hashachar, you would still be Yotze. So the same thing with Amidah. Amidah should be after sunrise, but if you did it after Alos Hashachar, you're still okay.
Right.
But before Alos Hashachar, the Diavad even is no good.
I one time was taking the train back from Maryland to New York, and then I had to get from New York back to Far Rockaway, and I couldn't fall asleep on the train or anything. I was up all night.
Mm.
The train was late, and I was up all night and everything. So I went right to my ticket minion. I went right to the minion. I said to my caboose who's there, I said, listen, I haven't been sleeping. So I had, you don't see me for the brachas and all that, and so we had to do, and I had to wash and all that. Yeah, those train rides are not great. Okay.
Mm. Okay. Olos as ein hey.
If the first baby was born dead and the second alive, the living baby is tahor. If the first baby was born alive and the second dead, the living baby is tameh. I'm sorry, wrong way. Reb Meir says if they are in one fetal sac, the living baby becomes tameh. However, if they are in two fetal sacs, the living baby is tahor. If a woman is having a difficult labor, the offspring is dismembered inside her and removed limb by limb because her life takes precedence over his. And if most of his body has emerged, one may not harm him because one may not push aside one life for another.
Right. So this is an important principle. Is that even though we are very important, we attach a lot of significance to um, the life that's inside her womb, and you can't just abort for no good reason.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, we do see from this Mishnah that a person who has been born has precedence over a person who hasn't. So if the fetus is endangering the mother's life, then we abort.
Right, right.
Okay.
There are items that spread tumor and act as barriers against tumor. Items that spread tumor but do not act as barriers against tumor. Items that act as barriers against tumor but do not spread tumor, and items that do not spread tumor and do not act as barriers against tumor. These spread tumor and act as barriers against tumor. A chest, a box, a cabinet, a large straw basket, a large reed basket, and the water tank of an Alexandrian ship if they have flat bottoms and contain 40 sa of liquid, which is 2 cores of dry measure. A curtain, a work apron, a bed cover, a sheet, matting, and a mat. If they have been made into a tent, a herd of animals, whether non-kosher or kosher, large of wild animals, and nests of birds. A bird that is resting, and one who makes a place for her son among the stalks in the iris, the kisum, chamor greens, the green gourd, the Greek gourd, and food that remains tahor. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nori disagrees concerning food that remains tahor, except for a pressed cake of figs. The
All of
following,
these things. Oh, no, that's it. We're done.
no,
All right. So those are all the things that both block tumor and spread tumor. So that's like that's kind of a standard case of anything that's an ohel. It forms an ohel and spreads underneath it, but does not, but blocks it from going through.
so, right. Okay. Dalit.
Etios dalet tes.
3 brothers, 2 of whom were married to 2 sisters, and the third one was a bachelor. If one of the sisters' husbands died and the bachelor performed mama with the widow, and then his second brother died, Beis Shammai says his wife may remain with him, and the other woman is discharged because she is his wife's sister. But Beis Hillel says he must discharge his wife with both a get and a chalitza, and his second brother's wife with chalitza. Concerning this they stated, woe unto him over his wife, and woe unto him over his brother's wife. One who pronounces a vow prohibiting his wife to have marital relations, Beis Shammai says 2 weeks. Beis Hillel says 1 week. If she miscarries during the night beginning the 81st day, Beis Shammai exempts her from additional offerings, but Beis Hillel obligates her to bring additional offerings. Regarding tzitzis in a linen night cloak, Beis Shammai exempts, but Beis Hillel obligates. A basket of fruit for the Shabbos, Beis Shammai exempts, but Beis Hillel rules that it becomes subject to the tithing obligation. If someone declared a Naziris of long duration, completed his term of Naziris, and then came into the Holy Land, Beis Shammai say he must be a Nazir for 30 days, but Beis Hillel said he must be a Nazir from the beginning. And this is the story about the
Hilni Amalka. Yes,
Right.
that's right.
Someone above whom 2 groups of witnesses were testifying. These testified that he declared 2 terms of Naziris, and these testified that he declared 5 terms of Naziris. Beis Shammai says the testimony is split, and there is no Naziris here. Beis Hillel says 2 is included in 5, and so he's a Nazir for 2 terms.
Right. Okay.
Long time. Okay, we have Mo Katan.
Moed Katan.
Okay. An unskilled person may sew in his usual manner, but an artisan may sew only with irregular stitches. We may interlace supports for beds. Reb Yossi says we may even tighten them. We may set up an oven, a stove, a millstone during Chol Moed, and Reb Yehuda says we may not roughen the millstones initially. We may build a railing for a roof or a balcony in an unskilled manner, but not in a professional manner. We may replaster the cracks and roll them as if they were with a roller, with the hand and with the foot, but not with the trowel. A hinge or a socket or a beam or a lock or a key that broke may be repaired during Chol Moed, defining that one does not plan his work for Chol Moed. All pickled foods that can be eaten during the festival may be pickled during Chol Moed. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right. That's
Okay.
us.
Have a great day. Okay.
Okay. Have a good day.
You too. Be well. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.